Hello, everybody, and welcome to another installment of City Lights Live. I'm your host, Peter Maravellis, and tonight we are delighted to have in the house Lucy Sante celebrating the publication of her new book, I Heard Her Call My Name, a memoir of transition. It is published by Penguin Press. Before we begin, as is customary at the outset of each event, I'd like to acknowledge that we are beaming to you from the unceded ancestral homelands of the Ohlone people, aka the San Francisco Bay Area. We'd like to take this moment to offer our respect to those who have come before us as stewards of the land. So we have been huge fans of Lucy Sante's work here at City Lights over the decades. Her erudition, her razor-sharp commentary and wit have stood out for us, whether it be in feature articles appearing in the New York Review of Books, or with wonderful books like Low Life or Evidence or Kill All Your Darlings. Lucy's work has held a great allure for us and been something we've always looked forward to. In September of 2021, at the age of 66, Lucy transitioned from male to female. I Heard Her Call My Name is the bringing together of two unique threads of personal narrative, the arc of Lucy's life and her recent stage-by-stage transition to a place of both inner and outer personal alignment. We are thrilled to have her join us to talk about this very compelling story. Joining Lucy tonight in conversation will be Cintra Wilson. Cintra is no stranger to City Lights. We've hosted her from way, way back. And I have to say, she performed one of the most remarkable manifesto readings while standing on top of the poetry room table ever. This is her book, A Massive Swelling. So Cintra is an author, former New York Times journalist, performer, painter. Her weekly Substack can be found at cintra.substack.com. I'm going to post that in the chat. So we're going to be making room at the end of tonight's discussion for questions from the audience. You can also post those in the chat or Zoom dashboard. And we will be posting links with which you may purchase copies of I Heard Her Call My Name, as well as other books by Lucy. So please join us in offering a warm welcome to Lucy Sante and Cintra Wilson. This is an absolute thrill to have you both with us. Welcome to City Lights.
Woo! I must correct it. It's Lucy Sante.
Sante.
Thank you, Cintra.
My apologies.
It's in the book. It's in the book.
French. Oui, oui, c'est Belgique. So I am so happy to be here. I finished the beautiful book I Heard Her Call My Name this week, and it's such a remarkable journey. And I mean, you know, it seems so scouringly interior, you know, for something of yours, and it really struck me how I loved your analytical brain brought to this new kind of more interior field of experience. Am I talking on my ass, or does that sort of make sense? Yeah, you're with me so far. Okay, well, you know, one of the things that I loved that you said, and I'm going to do a lot of this, is that you said that your subconscious knows everything, and that if you were in a 12-step program, it would be your God. And I thought that was absolutely wonderful because it's so Jungian, and I wanted to see if you can unpack that a bit.
Wait, is that a question?
No, it's not a question. I just wanted to say, like, you know, how did you start to realize your subconscious was so smart? I mean, like, how does it work for you as a writer, for example?
Well, it's very simple, you know. It's not very simple, but it came pretty early because I would find myself, you know, encountering a question, whatever it was, or, you know, reviewing something and trying to articulate it to my friends. And I sound like an idiot. And then I write something, and actually my writing is smarter than I am. Hence, there must be elves in there who are actually doing the work. It's not me. So I call it the subconscious, but it's really a bunch of elves.
Yeah, I entirely agree with you, and I rely heavily on the intelligence of such elves because I find that I can write much more intelligently than I actually am in many cases, and in some not so much. But I mean, I think that we quantify intelligence wrongly for the most part anyway. I mean, like you, like me, have no academic degree. Is that
Right.
right? I mean, you're an autodidact, one of those.
I'm a
Yeah,
dropout. I'm a dropout.
yeah, but you're like one of them punk rock intellectuals, and you read everything, everything. I know you read it all, but I mean, you have a son, and I'm wondering, like, what was your party line when you were speaking to your son about academia? Like, do you feel that it's important, or maybe not as important?
Well, it's important today to get a job in a way that it wasn't when I was a youngin. Um, I could get a job eventually. My last full-time job was as an editorial assistant at the New York Review of Books. And these days, you'd have to be an intern first, and to be an intern, you pretty much have to go on to several one of several specified schools, or be in that general talent pool. And I kind of walked in off the street in a way. So for my son, I had to tell him, no, because he's a history nerd. And he's very much kind of self-taught, but he had to go through the whole process. He had to be academically trained in order to get somewhere.
As a
So
historian, I guess you would be all right. This may seem out of left field, but you grew up reading Tintin, like I did. Tintin,
yes,
Tintin.
yeah.
Yes. Now, all right. Given the wealth of experience that you have, do you think Tintin's gay? Because he lives with an old sea captain, and their only female friend is an opera diva, Madame Castafiore. Like,
He's that little white dog. Yeah.
no, Snowy, even Snowy was a dude. I mean, it's just a hair shade, in addition to being a Nazi sympathizer. I don't think he had much use for women.
No, no. In fact, yeah. You look the old the old Tantab books, the hardcover ones, have a whole gallery of portraits on the end papers. And it's just
Yeah,
fantastic.
I love
Um,
that.
and you count, and there's like five women, and two of them are like char women. It's yeah.
Chang's
There's no mother.
mom.
There's no mother even. You'd expect at least a mom, but no. I think
Exactly.
self-created, I don't know.
I
Fuck,
mean, it's a completely, yeah. It's a monosexual world. The world of Tintin. Yeah,
totally.
moving on. Is it fair to call you a fashion slut the same way that I am? I mean, I think we've both thought about it a lot. We invest a lot of personal energy and juice into it. You love it, don't you? Was that a question? No,
Yeah, right.
I just wanted to. I wanted you to like speak a bit on the relationship of like clothing to your individuality, and especially as you're carving it out, you know, now.
Mhm.
And I wanted to know like what look you're going for because I'm really hoping it's based on icons of yours.
Well, I'll tell you. I mean, first of all, I'm somebody asked me, what are your colors? And I said, well, A, I'm colorblind. B, I'm Belgian. So naturally, my colors are going to be black, charcoal gray, and navy blue. And they always have been throughout my life. And that hasn't changed. During the first 6 months of my transition, when I was way up there on cloud 16, and I had a bunch of change because I just sold my papers to the New York Public Library, and I
Wow.
could go nuts buying clothes. And so I tried all kinds of stuff. And, I find that no, what I really like is black, charcoal gray, and navy blue, and fairly classic cuts. Um, yeah, and I go through periods, because that's one thing. I mean, this I hear all the time from trans women is that, the mood swings are radical and they're daily, and mood swings involve clothes. So for a whole week, I'll be doing nothing but like jean and t-shirt wear because I kind of like don't feel like being invisible. I'm invisible anyway since I'm like nearly 70. But
You're
then,
looking hot.
say what?
You're looking hot though.
Um, but then like a strange madness will take me over and I'll start like putting on the whatever. Um, and as far as being based, well, you can tell, okay, my hair is the dead giveaway, right? My historical period is 1965 to 1966, right? And so my icons are, Françoise Hardy, Jean
Uh-huh.
Clinton, Marianne Faithfull, you get the general
I absolutely
gestalt there,
do.
right?
Yeah, anybody who had sex with Serge Gainsbourg, pretty much,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah, like Jane
right.
Birkin.
Yeah.
I'm with you. Yeah, I like it. You've got the Birkin hair going on. Now you just got to get somebody to buy you the bag. Get
Yeah, what
you
is it
out.
about that bag?
They're like $300,000, and
I just go down to the corner of Canal Street and Broadway, New York City, and buy an exact replication that costs only $9.99.
the replicas have gotten so good that there's now an existential question about them because even experts can't tell the difference between the fakes and the real one,
Right.
which begs the question, like, yeah,
Yeah,
when's the thing real? When it's real.
yeah.
Mm.
It's like one of them was blessed by a saint and the other one wasn't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The saint of your oppression. I hate, yeah, I hate wealth. Um, so you wrote about something that I just found so endearing, trans quinceañeras, which is just like, in a better world, they'd have trans quinceañeras for every culture on earth, I think.
Yeah. Is that a real thing? I mean, I've been watching, I mean, I haven't watched them in a while, but I was watching these for years and years, and it seemed like it was an actual tradition. Is it an actual tradition?
I read it in your book. So I was hoping you knew.
I posed it as a question in the book because I don't
Oh,
know.
okay. No, I
I'm,
mean, I was just I was so enchanted with the idea of it, I must have spaced out the context. But I mean, but I was thinking about trans, kids growing up, trans teens and their place in society. And it really kills me that, like, as Americans, we genocided a Native American culture that had, since the Stone Age, evolved into a society where there was a place for all people. And they had the Heyoka, they had the people who are, the two spirit people.
right.
And that seems so important. It's like, been around since the motherfucking Stone Age. I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
why are people like so upset about it? And then, but so like, I was going to ask you a really weird question. Let's see what you do with it. But like, okay, and if we were a really evolved society, what role would you say that transgender people held? Like, what are the doorways that you control?
Well, they were, the mystics, communicating with the dead. I mean, all those nice managerial questions of life and death. Yeah, it seems to me like, yeah, trans people, um, it's you definitely see into other dimensions when you're trans. Few people know this. And that's really the reason why they're trying to suppress us, because we have this mystical connection to the spirit world that they don't have and they'll never have because we control it.
That is so dope. I mean, I was thinking, I'm delighted to know that because, well, I don't know. I'm a mystical person too, and I wonder if it's a part of being female or merely crazy. But it's well, yeah. Welcome to it. I love that. I love that it is spiritual. Um, you in the book you talk about your egg cracking, which is the term you come back to a lot. And is that a term of art that is used
It
in
is.
trans circles? You want to
Yeah,
talk about that a little?
that's
Because it's such
trans
a
language. Yeah.
fascinating thing. It
Mhm.
encompasses so much.
And a person whose egg, well, and the egg is the knowledge of that one is trans, but an egg can also be a person who's walking around not quite knowing yet. So it's an ambiguous term, as so many are.
But it seems like, would you say it's sudden or gradual or sort of like going broke, like gradually then all of a sudden? Or is it
I mean, it happens different ways for different people and at different ages. So I like knew I was trans when I was 9 or something like that, but my egg took an awfully fucking long time to crack. It didn't happen until I was on the dark side of 66.
to me, that speaks to your superior intelligence, you know, like the fact that your brain muscles were so incredibly strong that you could strangle your inner self for
Mm.
decades, you know, I mean, just kind of effortlessly. And I mean, you know, I was one of the surprised people when you came out, just because I'd always thought of you as like punk rock dude. You know, like we came from punk rock together. So I always just perceived you as one of those guys. But I mean, it also opened my another trans friend of mine, when I said that to her, said, "You know nothing. You know absolutely nothing about trans." I mean, like, can you talk for a second about like how you can be a punk rock dude and also a lady?
Well, I mean, was I a punk rock dude, or did I just wear the costume of a punk rock dude?
You were
That's
to me. I mean, like you had, well, because you were a particular type, you know, you were a feat, you were intellectual, you were slightly Marxist, and you're, you know, or slightly, but I mean, you had that wonderful style about you, and that, you know, you had the punk rock magic pixie dust about you, and you were cool, and you had all the pedigrees.
see, excuse me. I don't see punk rock as being that far into masculine territory, really. I mean, we were all like skinny, we were all sparrow-chested dudes, we were not like heavy masculine guys. Well, if you go on the Reddit transforms, the thing I like best is the before and afters. And you see these like lumberjacks. I mean, you see people way more masculine appearing than any punk rock dude ever was. They're they're like deep sea fishermen. They are every kind of firefighters of the 19th century variety, heavily mustachioed figures, people with beards down to their waists. And suddenly, in picture number 2, they are manic pixie dream girl.
See, that's wonderful, and that's the thing that I also find confusing, is that like someone who like I would have not said that you had a feminine affect, you know. I mean, to me, you were kind of, you know, you had that kind of Martin Scorsese sort of tough quality behind your intellectual ways. Like, you know,
Protective coloration,
what'd you say?
I said protective coloration.
Yeah, exactly. I understand. But, you know, it was very convincing. But you did well, you know. I
I
mean,
mean, I thought my life depended on it, right?
but you know, you were talking about in relationship to, in the book you talk about it in relationship to taking acid, about how
Mm.
when you were kind of at war with yourself, like trans, not trans, it was macho to take acid because you knew that that problem was gonna come up and your mind was gonna chew on it, right?
And also, I mean, and that conflict was, explosive, and it might send me to the loony bin forever. I was conscious of that. Every acid trip I took was a challenge to my brain, like to, are you going to make me go completely bananas now or not?
See, that's the brave part, right? To my mind, that's like fearless warrior. You went there. You went to the other side. I mean, but did it help? Did it help
No,
thinking about
no,
it on acid? No,
no.
never.
Yeah. Well, I mean, no, it was a real struggle. I mean, I knew it was there, but again, you have to realize the conditions. I mean, I did not want to be professionally trans. And if you were going to be trans in the 1970s, it was going to be, you're signing up
You
for,
weren't going to be anything else.
permanent
That's
job.
right.
I'm not going to be able to be an intellectual on the side, right? Um, and number two, I like women, and that was unheard of. In fact, in the old transgender protocols written by Harry Benjamin, people were not even approved for gender transition unless they liked the quote opposite sex. So transition was going to make them heterosexual.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That is crazy. But I mean, that is the thing, is that, so many people, and I was an idiot about it too until I interviewed Chaz Bono, but understanding the difference between sexual desire and gender is kind of a lulu for many.
Mm-hmm.
Especially since, no neck monsters in the red states that don't like anything. So, but I wanted to talk to you because of that. You used the word macho, and I was wondering if now, as a woman, like, I have a sense of being macha,
Mm-hmm.
there's definitely a female machismo.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean?
Sure. And I mean, and it was a quality we all shared back in the day when the city was actually dangerous. And we all felt pretty good about ourselves for being alive. We were not taking the easy way out and living in tract house suburbs. We were in the belly of the beast. So macho, we were all there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, oh, punk rock nostalgia. um, let's see, there's a couple of quotes that struck me as just being wonderfully deep that were mantras for you, I guess. I mean, the first from the Gospel of St. Thomas: if you bring forth that is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you.
Yep.
Damn. You want to talk about that at all? Or like,
I mean, well, first of all, I confess it's just not a mantra. It's been running around my brain for years. I actually found it in a book by Emmanuel Carrère, maybe about 6 months before I started writing this book. But its message was familiar. I also mentioned the quote from William Blake:
I have that right
Sooner
here.
murder an infant in its cradle than nurse unacted desires. I mean, if you repress something, it will kill you. It will give you cancer. It will eat you out from the inside. It's like ingesting the alien monster and letting it do its work on your inner organs, and well, I mean, I was engaged in this race with this inner monster, and am I going to make it to the end of my life without anybody finding out my dreadful secret? And then,
Oh man,
yeah.
that's amazing. But I mean, that William Blake quote comes from Blake's Proverbs of Hell. So
Mm.
I was really wondering, like, you're a nice Belgian, lady, and did you have overwhelming feelings of Catholic, crazy, built in, just because it was drilled into your head, like feelings like you were, somehow distancing yourself from some horrible Catholic God?
Well, I was, yeah, my mother was hyper fanatical peasant Catholic. And I was devout until the age of like 12 or 13, around there. And then it just left me, bang. Meanwhile, I've hung on, despite my best efforts, to certain Catholic habits of thought, one of which is you have to have a really, really bad time before you can have a good time. I'm always hitting myself over the head with that one.
Oh, that's so. See, I mean, they have Catholics Anonymous now, and I think everyone who is raised Catholic should go, because that's just so crummy.
Yeah.
It's so mean to yourself. But yeah, but I mean, so did transitioning upset any dark Catholic notions in you? Did it disturb any permafrost in that area?
No, no, it's too dead, actually, frankly, at this point.
Good for
Wait.
you. Good for you. So I was gonna say, oh, transitioning, one of the most beautiful things that I think you say in your book is that it hasn't been a process of piling on more stuff, but a process of removal,
Mhm.
dismantling the carapace of maleness that had kept you in its grip for so long. Do you want to talk about this
Yeah,
blossom?
I mean, really, what doubts I had about the wisdom of my transitioning evaporated when I realized that no, I didn't really have to do anything. I mean, yeah, I could pay attention to my looks, but fundamentally, I mean, it was the male pretense. It was like going out and making sure, everything looked right. I mean, I was like, I don't n- double check myself nearly the way I used to at all. That I was much more concerned about passing when I was trying to be a guy than I do now, honestly.
Wow. You passed.
And just, I mean, yeah, the habit of repression too. I mean, I'm a lot more chatty now, because I'm not like biting my tongue to keep myself from saying something that might sound weird. I don't care now, it's great.
You have a really pretty smile too that I'd never seen before. Like you have pretty teeth. I think someone ought to tell you that.
They're brown from decades of cigarette smoking.
Oh, so are mine. Teeth is teeth. So, I laughed out loud when you wrote, I was a writer, of course, and a writer's life is never very interesting because so much of it takes place inside the writer's head. And I laughed for about 10 minutes because I am that dullard. But so I guess I had one more like thing to add, but it's kind of dumb. But I mean, I did actually suggest this to Chaz Bono one time. I'll tell you later. But what do you say to anybody who is dumb enough to suggest you did this for the publicity?
Oh gosh. Then I'll say, yeah, of course I changed my life for the publicity. Well, yeah, in fact, I had my New York Post headline already written because I mean, it just so happened, I love the coincidence, and it was pure coincidence that my egg cracked and I got paid for selling my papers to the New York Public Library the same week.
That's
Um,
awesome.
and I could see the New York Post headline, you know, Prof uses, I had something much more clever, which I can't remember, but it was more or less, Prof uses Fed funds to, I don't know if it's Fed funds, city funds for sex change. Prof, Prof sex change paid for by city bucks, something like that. Um, so, well, I mean, uh, it's a thought, right? I mean, since I've already done so much else for the publicity, you know me,
All
I'm a,
those stunts
I'm,
you
I'm a
do,
publicity whore. Yeah. I'm always like setting myself on fire and, you know,
streaking through all those Super Bowls.
yeah, exactly. Landing a parachute in the White House lawn.
No, I know, but it was actually a question that I was at one point just dumb enough to ask Chaz Bono when I was writing for the New York Times, and I said, I have to ask, is any part of this because you were the child of Cher, And I mean, it was an idiot question, but it's one I genuinely had, and Chaz was kind about answering it and filling me in on some of the gaps. How do you want to educate people in terms of trans stuff? Like, what do you think people most need to know in order to be good to you?
What people really need to know is that nobody really wants to be trans. It's not voluntary. It's not a choice. It's there. It's like being it's like being double jointed or albino or even left-handed. I mean, you realize when I was at school in Belgium as a kid, they were still forcing left-handers to write with their right hands. Why? Because the right hand was the hand of God and that was the hand of the devil.
Oh,
Um,
I forgot.
so it's a similar thing. It's a physical fact, and people just got to get over this. And and furthermore, it it's obviously sex adjacent because everything in life is sex adjacent, but it's not, people don't do it for sexual reasons. And
But
that is the main slander, this autogynephilia, which the right wing loves to promote nowadays.
there's a crazy. I mean, we should maybe see some chat questions in a second. So like, maybe Eric wants to plug in at some point. But oh hell, what were we just talking about? I had a question. Uh,
Yeah, what do I want people to know about trans? I mean, and the other thing too, the thing I did say is that it is bloody hard. It's very hard. It's hard because of, the self-doubt, the mood swings, and it's hard to face the world. It's a little easier for me because, I'm at the doorway of senility here, so I don't even get noticed by anybody. But for like younger people, middle-aged people, it is really, really tough. And nobody seems to acknowledge that. It's like, oh yeah, sure, I'll just transition and hunky-dory, but no, they do not realize.
it's been an ordeal, right?
Mm, yeah.
How's it going now? How you feeling?
Oh, I'm feeling pretty good, but ask me in ask me in about 8 hours and we'll see how I still feel then.
Fuck them moods. I don't envy you the estrogen. I mean, like, I'm kind of
Yeah,
like, I'm all
that's
out now and I feel great. I feel better than ever. That shit was wacky. So,
yeah.
well, all right, let me see if I don't know how this chat thing works. Oh, here we go. I'll like see if I can okay, got it. Let's see. Oh, and there's all right. Like trying to yeah, cue for later. Has Lucy done LSD since transitioning, and did that alter the trip?
No, last time I did acid was in 1981. I haven't done it since. Um, I'm a little, I might do it again. I'm not sure. Um, I always feel like my sanity is a pretty fragile thing anyway. Um, and but who knows? I still got a bag of mushrooms upstairs. Uh,
Honey, mushrooms is so good these days. I mean, I have been having like 4 of the 5 best days of my life have been on mushrooms. They've gotten so good at it. And nothing will just make you feel more centered and whole and vibrating and connected to nature and spiritual and beautiful. And it really makes all that white goddess shit make sense, don't it?
okay.
Yeah.
Recommendation from Cintra.
Yes, do more mushrooms, everyone, and tell your kids. So there's a question from the wonderful Bradford Lyric. Growing up, was Lucy aware of Christian Jorgensen?
Yeah, I was aware at some point in my adolescence. She was part of this floating cultural knowledge, appeared in newspapers and such. And I thought, whoa, amazing. But it also seemed like impossible. Like it seemed like, okay, well, this GI came back from Sweden and was a lady, but like that can't happen. It's some kind of weird one in a zillion kind of thing, right? It did not seem likely at all.
So when you read about that, I mean, did it stir something in you that said, "Ah, you know, why?"
Yeah, like I wish that were me. Yeah, totally, sure.
That must have been very terrifying at a time when it was so alien to everybody.
Mhm.
The asker of that question, incidentally, was the great Bradford Lurett, who was a great friend of mine, who actually played Christine Jorgensen and won a Drama Desk Award for it off Broadway, and is a
Cool.
genius and a wonderful person. So, anybody got some question, or is there anything that you want to talk about,
Hmm.
or should we leave it to the crowd? We got Lynn Peril in the house. Yeah.
See, there's Lynn. Hey,
How do we turn you on? Let's see. There's a um. Well, let's go.
okay, you
Like,
people,
what
come
do
on,
you
ask some
have
questions.
some questions, people? I mean, in the meantime, I'll entertain you. What? Okay, I want to hear about you enjoying being a girl and the ways in which you're doing it. I want to hear about some self-care and some spoiling.
Um, well, I discovered my skin, right? That
Which
was a
looks
major
really
thing.
nice.
That was like day one of transitioning, was discovering, oh yeah, skin. And my parents, who I don't have much good to say about in the book, but they did something really amazing for me when I was a teenager and I started getting acne. They
Mm.
sent me to a dermatologist who tortured me for an entire year with dry ice treatments. And
Whoa.
it was hell. I hated every second of it. Um, but it got rid of my
Why?
acne and left
I
me with really good skin, even at age almost 70, right?
Your
So I'm
skin
very
does look
grateful for
beautiful.
this. Thank you.
Mm.
And I got me some really high-end hair, as you can see, super high-end. Um, and I mean, I've always been a clothes horse, and you know that about me. I was a clothes horse as a guy. So that hasn't changed much. Um, I was talking about how my tastes haven't changed that much either. They're just a kind of gender adjusted, but it's like, I mean, it's really crazy how much I'm the same person, really.
I can really dig it, but I am, by the way, super digging the red lipstick. Like that's really, I mean, I put on lipstick before I get my mail. Like lipstick is something that I need on my face.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. Nope. Oh, how did we meet? Was it back in the glory days of New York? I will leave this one to you.
We met on that, famous 100-person chat room that I mentioned in the book.
We belong to a top secret club of 100 authors, and we can't talk about it, or they'd have to kill us.
That's right. Our lives are hanging by a thread even now.
We are in constant danger. But yeah, no, it was really amazing. And one great memory I have is of you and Gary Panter coming when I was reading some kind of manifesto on a table. I realize you've seen me do that a couple of times now.
Yes, and your pharmacopoeia, if I'm pronouncing that right, resulted in several memorable lost evenings of my life. Yeah.
Oh my God, I do remember that. I remember having to apologize to you because I got Mimi whacked to the tits on Kratom. That was a crazy night.
Hmm.
But fun. Oh, here we go. May asks, I am just learning about your writing. Can you talk about the other side of New York City and Paris? This sounds fascinating. Oh my God, ma'am, you must read Low Life. It's one of my favorite books in the whole world.
Well, yeah, I wrote that book an awfully long time ago. It was really written by another person, but um, it was written when I mean, it was published in 1991, but it was hatched. I got the contract in 1986. And because it always takes me a long time to do stuff, except this book, which took like no time. Anyway, I conceived of it when I started seeing the yuppies flood in and the character of the city, and I could see it all coming, you know. And indeed, I mean, every single thing I feared has come true. You know, high-rise buildings going up in low-rise neighborhoods, these ridiculous, obscene, 200-story whatever dildos that are fringing Central Park now. Um, the loss of character, the fact that you walk down the street and you look for a place to hang, and basically and I don't, you end up at these coffee shops, um, including certain chains I won't grace by mentioning, instead of being able to hang out in bookstores or record shops, etc. Um, there's no place to just like kill time. If you're like early for your bus, there's no place to go except some place where you're going to consume. See, that's a great thing about record stores and bookstores, is that you can hang out without consuming. And that's what the economy is out to kill, right? Um, so yeah, so I wanted to, and I want to like take the moment I was living in New York City at that point and link it to all the earlier New Yorks. I was living in these tenements. My tenement was built in the one I started the book in, it was built in 1902. One of the victims of the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire lived in my building.
Wow.
So, and I always wish that like tenement rooms had like the way library books used to have a card in the back that would tell you everybody who borrowed it over the years, like everybody who lived in there. So it was my attempt to bridge the centuries, to say hello to the people in the 19th century and bring them forward into the 21st.
I love that. And I also love that you've always had an investigative eye on the demi-monde, the lesser known, the gangs, the interesting stuff, the moitives,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
flop houses, the brothels.
But at the same time, like people are always saying, you like to look at the dark side of things. And I say, well, the fact is, I'm looking at things from the point of view of the working class, because that's where I come from. And yeah, the crime and vice exist in the working class lives because that's what we've got. You got crime and vice in the upper echelon too, but those are quiet. The robbery is much greater than anything any crook could pull off or going on every day, except it's going on in some field of numbers that I don't understand and never will.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, that's correct. I mean, I feel like the same way writing about my experiences is that they were just lower middle class, man. I'm not trying to be avant-garde.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. And like, yeah, class in this country has become terrifying. I mean, I'm just gonna come out swinging and say, how do you feel about third way social democracy? I want one.
Yep. Pick me up one. Pick me up a cold one while you got
I'll get you a 12-pack of that.
Yeah.
Come on, audience members. You have one of the most fascinating human beings on earth here. Let's have a question. Are there any labels you're loving right now, clothing wise? Is there any stuff that's like, yes, I must have J. Jill or like?
It varies somewhat. I fall in love with a brand, and then the third thing I buy is a real disappointment. So I'm hesitant to say. And some of my favorite clothes are like very expensive. Well, okay, this garment I'm wearing here, this is my Codigan. It's from CP Shades, and it was probably really expensive, but it is the single most useful as well as flattering piece of clothing I own, I think. I wear it like 3/4 of the year.
I'm all about investment pieces.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because if you amortize it over the amount of times that you actually wear a quality garment, you know, you're paying like $1 a session for a while, and then it becomes free, and then it's paying you. I like
Yes,
to think.
you can't afford not to.
Exactly. It's free eventually. So, who you promoting right now? You reading anybody that you love? Or you like
Oh, what did I just, well, okay. The great biography of Candy Darling by Cynthia Carr is coming out in, I guess, a few weeks, and that's going to be that's a killer. It's an amazing book.
oh, okay, Candy Darling, was that a Warhol personage? Am I
You don't know
right?
about Candy Darling? This is improbable, but
I know there's big holes in my head.
uh, yeah, Candy Darling, who you know, star of I would say star of Heat, Trash. No, no, she was in Flesh and Women in Revolt, because all those Paul Marcy films, for me, they run into one. I can't tell who was in which, but those are the two. Um,
I just remember Sylvia Miles trying to get with Joe D'Alessandro.
I can't think of Sylvia Miles without remembering the standing joke about how she'd go to the opening of a refrigerator.
I love that. Oh, we've got a question for you. Did Lucy ever cross paths with Mel Gordon, author of Voluptuous Panic? He was living in New York in the 70s, former educator at TDR, hung out with some Jewish New York Dadaists that at that time must have hung out at CBGB's.
Hmm. No,
Mel
can't
Gordon.
say that I have, although I know Voluptuous Panic. I have a copy of it. It's a great book, but I've never crossed paths with. I couldn't even tell you the author, actually.
You would think you'd be natural allies. Wait, hold on. I have to dive down and get my computer cord, or my computer is going to die. No,
Oh.
not today. To that we say not today. Um, so I mean, what else are you enjoying these days? I mean, have you found like, okay, I remember when I interviewed Chaz Bono, and Chaz Bono had first become a man, I was like, well, what are the things that really surprise you? And Chaz said, well, first, I can't stand women's chatter anymore. Like women chattering, I just
Hmm.
like I want to turn it off. And second, I love gadgets. Like I have to have the newest phone, and I have to like he got really gadgety. I was wondering, like, what major tectonic shifts have there been for you in like weird areas you didn't imagine?
Well, I mean, I perceive men so differently now. That is really incredible.
Talk about that.
Because, um, I mean, because men were always kind of a reproach, Look at this dude and how this dude is behaving, and I should be more like that because blah, blah. And now that that's gone, I see, it's not all that I'm like against men or disgusted by it so much as that I find it really funny. I mean, the amount of role play, the amount of like essentially drag that goes on in the male performance
Men
is
are
just
just LARPing.
stupefying. Yeah. I mean, I just study these guys who are online at the bank or something, and they're all posing, they're all posturing in ways that I was never quite aware of when I was trying to be a guy, because
Wow.
I thought it was the norm.
Oh my God. So now you see them as having like these kind of ridiculous trumped up, like, personas, like bad, Walmart Halloween costumes.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
That's pretty great. Any new tastes? Any new things like, I absolutely must have mandarin oranges, or, you know,
Um, Let me see. Well, I mean, I do eat less. And trying to think of anything. I haven't, one thing, everybody, I remember when I first like was coming out, one of my friends came over with a box of tea bags, and the brand name was Womankind. And and then the joke became, now that you're a woman, you're going to start drinking tea, right? No, that box remains unopened. I still don't drink hot beverages after breakfast.
Hot
And I've never
beverages.
been into tea, especially not herbal tea, and I never will. So if that makes me an imposter, fine, let it.
Tea is just so transvaginal.
Well, I failed. I'm sorry. I apologize to womankind.
That's really funny. Oh, Mamie has another question. Do you like William Blake? She loved the quotes that you offered, and she also wants to know what artists you love.
Oh my
I
God.
want to know that too. What kind of art
Well,
you?
I dig Blake, and I have dug Blake for many, many years. Epigraph on my first book was from Blake, from the Proverbs of Hell. Drive your cart and your plow over the bones of the dead. Um, and what artists I like, oh my God.
Drive your cart and your plow over the bones of the dead. Now, see, all of the things from like Blake's book sound satanic to me, and therefore like karmically suspect. But I mean, is that just me being like frightened? Well,
Suspect.
I mean, I
What
try
do you
to avoid
mean?
being deliberately satanic. You know,
Oh.
like to me, it's sort of do what thou wilt is the whole of the law. You know?
Right. Hassan Salah. I'm
Like,
going to
like,
start like, oh, that sets off my William Burroughs tape in the back of my head. Last words of Hassani Saba.
what were they?
Well, it's a long thing that he does. There's a record of it, which is hypnotic. Other than that, I can't. I maybe this is gender related. I have a hard time reading Burroughs now, which
Really?
yeah.
Why? Like, what rubs you the wrong way about Burroughs?
Um, it's well, it's aggressively. I mean, if I say it's masculine, that's going to give the wrong impression, because masculine, you think of like, Burroughs' classic pigeon-chested punk himself. But it's I don't know, there's something that's very arid about it. There's something that's very non-sensual. I mean, it may be sexual, but it's not sensual. It's not rich. It's not, it's not nutritious. It's not,
I find it very theater of cruelty, which,
yeah.
I like the taste of blood on my teeth with writers, a bit.
Uh-huh,
Like
uh-huh.
I like the brutality of Burroughs a lot. I mean, do you think is the brutality something that maybe is rubbing you
The
wrong?
brutality. And well, I'm gonna just toss this one out and let the fur fly. It's also very Anglo-Saxon to me.
Oh, it's white.
It's
Yeah, I think we can say
so
that
white.
it's some honky ass shit
It's not
going
just
on.
white, it's Anglo-Saxon. In other words, there's nothing of we Latins, right? Um, I can't call myself a Latin because it means Latin American, but yeah, I'm from a Latin culture, a different one. Um, and Anglo-Saxon culture always seems to me kind of, you know, rot up its ass, Protestant, Puritan, and even like anti-Puritan is Puritan in some new way. I don't know. I don't quite William Burroughs to me is a lot like Cotton Mather.
Huh, how so?
Well, it's sinners in the hands of an angry God, and that's part of that Anglo-Saxon thing.
Huh, huh.
You wouldn't hear an Italian say that.
I do. How do you feel about like the beats now in general? Does your thing about does that extend to like Kerouac and Kesey and then that kind of flavor of 60s masculinity, or is that still kind of foundationally? And I would think that that would inform some teenage part of you.
I mean, there's still some stuff. I mean, I have a kind of fetish concerning Michael McClure's play The Beard, which is
Huh.
two character play. It's Jean Harlow and Billy the Kid, and I've got two of the posters. I've got the tickets right here behind my desk. I've got all this paraphernalia relating to that play because I love it so much.
I wanted to
I've never
audition for
seen a
that play
production.
so bad. That play
Yeah.
was at Magic Theater, and they wouldn't let me audition for it because my reputation was too terrible. But yeah, that play is incredible. And in the very last scene, Billy the Kid goes down on Jean Harlow.
That's
And
right.
Fade to black, the best.
And it's got a bad reputation because of Kenneth Tynan calling it a milestone in the history of heterosexual literature. And no, it's just two people playing parts. It can be any two people of any, gender, the Z and Q and Y genders. It doesn't have to be heterosexual just because they're playing
You could
roles.
cast it as two male black dwarves. It would still be interesting.
Bingo, yeah.
Oh, we've got another thing for you. In HHCMN, I heard your book. You wrote that New York Review of Books Barbara Epstein gave you one of the most crucial gifts for her writer, the ability to arrogate unto yourself the authority to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about the giving and receiving of this gift, finding this baseline confidence in your writing self? Nice question.
Yeah. Well, no, she did. I mean, Barbara, if it hadn't been for before I went to work for Barbara, I wanted to be a writer, and I have no idea how, what to write or how to get published. I would write stuff that I was going to send to the Village Voice, but I didn't think I was good enough for the Village Voice, and Barbara, basically put pay to all of that and opened me up. And for a while, what that meant was that I would think, well, I'm just some schmuck, right? But my writing, I had ironclad confidence in my opinions before I had any confidence about me, right?
I feel you. I feel you
Stuff.
there. I know. I totally relate to that. I think that's a stunner. But I mean, like you said, I feel much smarter when I write, but I guess it comes back to that magical subconscious that fills in all the blanks and reminds you of words that you've only seen written down and don't actually know the meaning of.
I know my subconscious often will give me a word, and I'm not sure of its meaning, but it's got to be right, and it usually is.
That's what happens to me.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Yeah, it's like the magic right word. Don't know why I know it. Yeah. Oh, from a comment quite a few minutes back, one thought on noting people doing or having spiritual aspects and just people doing spirituality. Systemic constellations are interesting for watching someone just walking into a situation of there you are minding your own business and along comes a flood of someone else's data. And often some random person has walked into a constellation meeting, maybe previously had only heard of something in 20. I don't know what you mean, so.
Not so much a question as a comment.
I think I know that's a comment, but all right. Well, I don't know what you mean quite. Try that one again. How about fragrances? Has anything changed with you in fragrances?
Fragrant. Oh, well, not really. That's a funny thing. When my first book came out, Low Life, but one piece of criticism that really stung was somebody said, well, okay, you write about what the sea looked like, sounded like, blah, but you don't say anything about how it smelled. And I thought, oh my God.
It smelled terrible. It was New York, for God's sake. It was covered in shit and
puke. Yeah, somebody made me a bespoke perfume.
Ooh, what are the ingredients?
I keep forgetting to wear it.
bespoke perfumes can be a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Do you know, did you, did you like the notes of it? Did you relate to it?
Yeah, I mean, well, I was asked to list things I liked, and so it's got, I don't know, coffee grounds and you know, I don't know.
What do you aspire to smell like?
A day in spring.
All
I
right.
mean, I'm simple that way. I don't think I have a very well developed nose. I like the original Eau de Cologne. I like Chanel #5. My mother used to wear something called white shoulders, which is really great.
My grandma wore white shoulders
Yeah.
too. Yeah, that was a classic one. Those are really fruity, girly, flowery scents. Like, do you think that you could go there with a flowery scent? Like, I wear aftershave practically. Like,
High
I wear,
karate.
yeah, I would wear like karate if I could get my hands on it. But I wear mossy, woodsy stuff just because, like, you know.
Yeah, I haven't explored this well. This is a further avenue of research I really have to go on here.
Yeah, enjoy that one. Olfactory stuff. What about, okay, here's another one. Do you have like homemaking? Do you find yourself having a different approach to like nesting and being cozy and having, you know, your place and your comforts and your things? Do you
Oh,
find
totally. Oh, yeah.
it-
And one thing about being a girl is I'm much, much more aware of dirt. I was so casual about dirt previously, and now it bothers me in this whole new way.
Wow, unbelievable. I mean, so yeah, but
I'm still too lazy to do that much about it, mind you, but
I recommend the Roomba. The Roomba's a
oh,
good option. And how's your son doing behind all this? I mean, is he taking it well, or?
oh yeah. I mean, he's Generation Z. He started meeting there were trans kids in his class in middle school. Um, and he's done lots of live action role playing, which apparently is a magnet for trans kids. So he was completely chill about it. He's very straight, but he had no problem. And actually, I talked to him on the phone a couple of days ago, and he said, I'm going to start reading your book. Can you tell me right now if there is anything that will upset me in there? I you mean like explicit sex scenes? No. You know, he's kind of
Uh,
a he's kind of a square in a nice way.
so how do you feel? Are you celibate? Are you looking for chicks, or you?
I'm always looking for somebody who'll laugh at my jokes, sure. You know, rare enough.
I'll laugh at your jokes, lady. I just wish you were in town so I could buy you a gimlet.
Uh,
All right. Well, it looks like the City Lights people have come back on. Hey, Eric, how's it going? Are you signaling something?
This was such a thrill and so much fun. And Cintra, you're the consummate pro at this. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
thank
yeah,
you.
you
Thank you so
got it.
much for doing that.
Thank you.
And Lucy Sante, thank you for this book and for gracing our halls. And the only thing I regret is that normally, in the store, we usually go out for drinks afterwards. So you guys get like a rain check. When you pass through town, you give us a little nudge. And I want to thank everyone in the audience for joining us tonight. Please check out the links in the chat. Buy the book.
Oh, and read Lucy's book. It's beautiful and it's so interesting and it's so informative. And and Lucy, I love you and you're incredible.
I love you too, Cintra. Thank you.
My
Great.
pleasure. My absolute pleasure.
All righty.
So long, everybody. Take care.
Bye.